and I will hand you over to Viv, who's going to talk to you about cultural awareness in the primary classroom.
Hello, I hope you can all hear me out there. I'm Viv Lambert and I'm primary author for Macmillan. This is my first ever webinar, so I hope you will forgive me if I drop my papers all over the floor or look at the wrong screen or press the wrong button. Just bear with me, I'm practicing on you. I'm actually really excited to be here, and I think it's amazing that I can communicate with people out there from all different countries all over the world. We've seen Belgrade, Belarus, Argentina, Brazil popping up here, Poland, and it is amazing that I can just communicate with you from the comfort of my armchair here in the office in Oxford. And this brings me to the topic of my talk, which is intercultural communication and specifically raising cultural awareness. Here in the UK we had our awareness raised considerably this summer with the Olympic Games in London and the Paralympics, which brought athletes from all over the world brandishing their colourful flags, wearing national costumes and all this kind of thing. And also from our very own country with the gold medalist Mo Farah, who is British but from Somalia, and our national treasure Jessica Ennis, whose father is Jamaican. It really did make us here in Britain think about the multicultural society that we live in, and was an incredibly positive experience for young people here in Britain, and helping them to realise what the different cultures that are out there and the diverse world that we live in. It was perhaps the first time some of these kids had really been made aware of this. I hope everyone can hear me out there. I don't know if I can look for ticks or you can all wave or something. I'm assuming you're all listening to me. So yeah, I think we're now going to talk about cultural awareness in the classroom, and this is not a new thing, I realise that. I've been working in English language teaching for over 20 years. And the first books we ever used had pages, lessons on culture, usually British culture in the old days, and also the ubiquitous festivals pages with Christmas and Easter and this kind of thing. But today, I think cultural awareness is even more important and has more relevance in our globalizing world. So I wanted us to hopefully answer 3 questions by the end of today. What is culture? Why is it important to raise cultural awareness? And how can we do this in the primary language classroom? I think, yeah, the first question, what is culture? I don't know what springs to mind when you hear this word culture. What does it make you think of when you hear the word culture? I'm just scrolling down because I've realised where I can see your comments. Yes, yes, and yes. Ah, great. Now I know where to look. Sorry. You can see me in the background. Okay. I'm still scrolling on here. Hello, hello, Viv. Hi. Okay, hello. I'm glad you've been listening. I've only just worked out how to see your comments. Okay. So I've got to the right part now. Food, traditions, habits, art, music, literature, habits, customs, language. Great, I'm getting loads of ideas here. Costumes, language, national identity, brilliant. Okay, well, I've actually divided this into two areas. The first I'm calling Big C culture. In this category, I've included art, music, literature, language, architecture and history. A lot of the topics that you are coming up with. I think these are things that we can read about perhaps in a guidebook to a country, or you can learn about in a history book. But I've also got a second list, which I've called Small C culture. And the small C culture headings are daily routines, food, clothes, hobbies, and jobs, and this kind of thing. Does this list look familiar? Does this list remind you of anything? Have you seen this type of list anywhere else? I'm just scrolling through to see what you're saying. Okay, well, I think we see these lists, yes, in our course books, thank you. Yeah, it is just like a syllabus, somebody has said. And you're right, it's like our contents page in the front of our primary language courses, or even the secondary courses, tend to stick to these topics. And I think this suggests that the language classroom is the natural place for us to teach more about culture and help our students to become more culturally aware. I think one of the problems with this area is these small C culture topics are things that are all around us, but they're things that we're not necessarily aware of. They influence our lives considerably, but you're not so aware of them until you can step outside of your own culture and look back in. And children, it's difficult for them to step outside their culture. Children tend to see their own culture as normal and other people's cultures as a bit odd or amusing or, at worst, inferior to their own. I actually teach French in primary school here, and very often I've had students coming up to me and saying, you know, why do they speak this weird language? Why can't they just be normal like us? And I think this is really common for children to think of their own culture as normal and other cultures as funny. So this is another reason why it's important to raise their awareness of other cultures, in the hope that they will foster respect and tolerance of others. I've got a quote here which kind of summarizes what I was saying. A fish only discovers its need for water when it is no longer in it. Our own culture is like water for the fish. It sustains us. We live and breathe through it. So if you think of our children as the fish who have never been outside of their own water, you can understand how difficult it is for them to look from the outside and appreciate what their culture is all about. You are all linguists. You must be. You're here today listening. You speak English, but you're not English. And you've all travelled, I'm sure. So you know that language and culture are inextricably linked. You can't fully know a language without knowing something of its culture. And you know that what is appropriate in one culture is not necessarily appropriate in another. This slide made me laugh. I think it shows how, yes, if you do the wrong thing, it can actually be considered quite inappropriate and possibly rude. I'm sure you all have funny anecdotes of times when it's been your lack of cultural understanding that has caused amusement or embarrassment, even if your language has been very good. I studied French. When I first went to France as a teenager, my French wasn't too bad, but I was so surprised. I knew how to say bonne nuit, but I did not know, nothing prepared me for the 4 kisses on each cheek that I received from a toothless grandpapa every night. And how do you say hello? Do you shake hands? Do you kiss? And what about other gestures like nodding your head? Apparently, well, I mean, if I nod my head, I mean yes, but apparently in Turkey, a nod of the head means no. These cultural gaffes are very common, and they have been around since travel began. But today I think it's more important. The Spaniards kiss too much for other cultures, I've just read. Well, you could say that the British don't kiss enough. We're all different. But today, yes, I think it's more than cultural gaps. We're not just talking about this type of thing. In today's world, there's so much more mobility. It's easier to communicate without moving. With the internet and virtual networking, like me sitting here now, communicating with you all over the world. Did you know, for example, that approximately 80% of the people who speak English in the world today are not native speakers? So today we have native speakers like myself communicating with other native speakers in the same country or in different countries. We have native speakers like myself communicating with non-native speakers like you. And more non-native speakers communicating with other non-native speakers. So we're not trying to learn the Queen's English anymore. I think people are not even learning English necessarily to travel to English-speaking countries. In the past, we used to try to learn a language and emulate the native speaker. We wanted to sound like the native speaker and even act like the native speaker. But I think today, the good news is that we are recognizing that people are not blank slates. Our children come into our classrooms with their own rich inner world, their own beliefs, customs and background. And I think we're now learning to appreciate these and value them as much as those that we are learning about. I think there's a huge link here as well to critical thinking, critical literacy, which is so important for our children today, where information is so readily available on the internet. And we need to help them to find a way through this maze of information and to teach them to assess what they're reading, to question what they're reading, and to understand that everything they read was written by somebody who came from somewhere, who had their own perception of life, their own background and customs, which probably influenced what they have written. Have a look at this slide. So I like this because I think this combines communicative or intercultural communication and critical thinking. You know, what are these round things on the board? Well, you know, it depends who's asking the question and it depends who's answering. Different perceptions can lead to misunderstandings. A snowball in one culture is a coconut in another. So cultural awareness is a crucial 21st century skill. And it's teaching children to have an open mind and be more accepting of differences. So how are we going to go about this? Most of our classes have children, monolingual classes with monocultural children. So how are we going to expose them to different cultures and get them to appreciate their own? I think the first thing to do, as we've seen, and I hope you agree, the culture that surrounds them is invisible to many children. It's something that they take for granted. So I think the first thing we need to do is to give them a sense of having their own identity. So at the very most basic level, teaching them some kind of self-awareness. I've got a few activities here to show you. This one, Colourful Fish, is really at the most basic level perhaps to use with your 5- and 6-year-olds even. I give the children each a fish template to decorate however they wish, colouring or sticking papers and things on them. And then they describe their fish and talk about the differences. You can gear this towards the language you want them to use, whether it's colours or descriptions. So they might come up with things like, my fish is yellow, your fish has a blue tail, this kind of thing. And then we display them in an aquarium scene. This one was done at the entrance to the school. And point out to the children how much more interesting the aquarium is with so many different fish. Wouldn't it be boring if they all looked the same? But equally, you can also draw their attention to how these fish are similar. They all need water. They all have tails. There are similarities and differences. Another activity which also raises similar issues is this one, things in common. If we were together in a workshop, I would get you to do this because it is quite fun. So in pairs, find 5 things you have in common with your friend. Again, depending on the level of language of your children, you might like to give them a questionnaire if they don't have the level to come up with their own questions. But you can keep the language very simple. Questions like, when's your birthday? Do you like pizza? Do you have a dog? What's your favourite colour? And they find which things they have in common. So they may come up with results like, we both have 2 dogs, or our birthdays are both in January, this kind of thing. And then, once they've found similarities, I go on to ask them to find out one thing that is special about them. I'm the only person in the class who wears glasses, or this type of thing. And it's just a very simple awareness-raising activity which encourages children to think about who they are, what is their identity, and how they're similar and different to others. A little bit more challenging, this activity, I've given children a group of photographs to look at. You don't have to choose that carefully. I mean, this was just some photos I found on the internet, all showing children in different situations. They spread them out on the desk in front of them, and then I asked them to put them into groups. Depending again on how intuitive your children are, you may need to guide them, but you might be able to just say to them, you choose, divide them up however you like, and you do get some very interesting results. And it can lead to interesting discussion, which may well mean that you have to talk in your first language. But here I think there's also enough material that relies on simple language, such as what are they wearing, what are they doing, I've had children group these into, these children are in school uniform and these children are not. This group is from a hot country. This group is from a cold country. These children are going to school. These children are playing. So they divide them up into groups. They usually start by discussing the differences between the children shown, differences in uniform, climate, etc. But then again, you can ask them to think about the similarities. How are these children similar to each other, and how are they similar to you? They all need food, they all have clothes, they look happy, they have friends, and it's a good way into discussing and valuing differences and similarities between children within the classroom and those outside in the wider world. Moving slightly out from this, I'm sure you all do this kind of global citizens projects. And this one we did at school, making a passport. Very simple, very easy language. What's your name? Where are you from? How old are you? What colour eyes do you have? This kind of thing. But the fact that children are putting this information into the context of a passport gives them a feeling of their place in the world. And I think other activities that do the same kind of thing involve colouring flags, for example, or looking at a map of the world and working out where your country is or where other people come from on a world map. Another useful way to introduce children to the wider world and other cultures is through authentic materials. I'm sure you all do activities with nursery rhymes and traditional songs and also storybooks, and really I need another whole session to talk about using stories. Telling stories and folk tales is a great resource for exploring other ways of life and comparing with their own. The three I chose here, I didn't know which to show because there are so many. The magic paintbrush is a traditional Chinese tale, and it's lovely, simple language, again, about a child who, a Chinese boy who is given a magic paintbrush, and everything he paints turns to life. But simply the illustrations and the clothing worn by the boy, the names of the characters, and the landscapes shown in the background are a way in to another culture at the simplest level. And the other two books I've shown there, then these are not even traditional folk tales. They are they're recent books. How the Platypus Got His Shape is one of these pourquoi tales, telling how the platypus used to be a very beautiful and colourful creature until his pride came before a fall and he was squashed flat in the mud. But in this book there are lots of other Australian animals. There are pictures of the habitats and the Australian climate, which can lead into discussion about weather in other parts of the world, animals in other parts of the world, and again, comparison with their own. The Queen's Knickers is a fabulous book, which came out this year for the Queen's Golden Jubilee. It's very, very funny, and it shows the different underwear that the Queen might wear on different occasions. I think on the cover even you can see some of them. She has a Union Jack pair of knickers that she wears when she's doing foreign travel. She has a pair with corgis on for days when she's at home walking the dog. It's a really lovely idea, very simple, and leads on so well to craft activities where they can draw their own knickers, or maybe imagine what knickers they would wear if they were queen, or what an important person from their own country would put on their underwear. It really is a very, very fun project, and it's kind of subliminally introducing them to another culture without having to learn facts or do it in a CLIL kind of way. They can learn different values and customs in a safe environment and see the world from a different perspective through reading a nice picture book. So really, storytelling is probably one of the best and one of my favourite ways into this whole area. The other thing we talked about was, course books. And our course books are, again, another great way to, a great resource when raising cultural awareness. We looked at those small C topics at the beginning that are in all of our primary books. And the personalisation activities that lead from these. So clothes, what are you wearing? Food, what do you usually eat for breakfast? Or the weather, what's the weather like? These are all ways to encourage children to think about their own cultures from the perspective of food or clothes, etc. They may not realise it, but they are actually reflecting on their own cultures through these activities. We talked about festivals pages and festivals activities that are included in our books. And I'm pleased to say that we are including festivals from all around the world in many of our books now. The one I've shown here, Next Stop, which I co-wrote, has the characters visit a different country in every unit. And we have fantastic photographs showing real children and real situations in these countries, and always encouraging the learners to then reflect on their own world, their own country, and how these the clothes or the weather compares with that of their own country. I think it's really important to stress the importance of their own culture as well. We're not just trying to teach them about the rest of the world. We're trying to show them that their own identity has so much value as well, and that none is superior to another. CLIL activities. Again, these are a great way through geography, world geography or world literature, world weather, this type of thing, to introduce children to other countries and cultures. And we're doing a lot in our course books now on CLIL and trying to tie this in with culture and intercultural activities. Macmillan's One Stop CLIL website is full of different ideas, projects about famous people from around the world, world geography, or they can do their own projects. I've shown weather again here because it's such a simple one to do. As long as you pre-select a website that is in English, children can research weather around the world very easily. It's a good one to choose because the weather symbols, the clouds, the sunshine, etc., are fairly standard, I think, around the world, so they don't need very much English to be able to do this. Direct communication is obviously the ideal way to get children communicating with people from other cultures. I saw a comment somewhere of someone using ePals or something. I don't know that one, but I have heard of this global gateway which puts schools in touch with other schools around the world. And the school I work in here, we had partner school in France, and I swear that the day the children received an email from the French kids telling them about their school uniform and their packed lunch was the first day that they believed that French was a real language and not just a school subject. They were so excited, nothing else compared with having this real communication from real French kids. So that is a great thing to do. You can obviously, if you have the opportunity, invite people into the classroom who are from different countries or different cultures, whenever possible, and talk about any travel that you do or that the children or families may do, getting them to bring in souvenirs or to take, and we do something we call travelling TED, where they take a teddy bear. The children in class take it in turns to take a teddy bear on holiday with them wherever they go. And they write a kind of diary and take photos of the teddy bear on the beach or eating, ice cream or eating a pizza or something. And they bring it back and they tell the rest of the class about where they've been with the TED. So, yeah, I think I'm kind of drawing to a close now, but just, to say, what are we going to do about culture? Is it a separate topic? Is it a CLIL topic? Or could it become a fifth skill along with reading, writing, listening, and speaking? There's a lot of discussion about this going on right now between course book writers and teacher trainers and teachers. I think we're probably doing the right thing. I'm sure you're all doing these kind of activities already. So really, I suppose it's more a matter of raising our own awareness as well as the kids' awareness to those activities that do involve intercultural material. And I've summed it up in this final slide, which just suggests that we should move from CLT, which is communicative language teaching, to ICLT, which is intercultural language teaching. So taking account of the social identities of our learners and recognizing that they bring their own culture and language to the classroom. It's a time of profound change. Learners today need to pass exams like they always have, but they also need to be able to communicate in a globalizing and digitizing world. The primary language classroom is the ideal place to raise cultural awareness. You can do it through your other subjects as well, but as we've seen, those topics in our books and those areas of personalization that we use in our language classrooms are perfectly suited to this. There's so much we can learn about the traditions and customs of people from other countries and ethnic groups, and I think children can only benefit from and develop hopefully anti-racist and multicultural understanding, which will help them to be more balanced individuals as they grow. So thank you for joining me in my first webinar and giving me my first virtual intercultural experience. And I hope you found it interesting, and I'm not sure if you've learnt very much new, but hopefully you'll just be now more aware that you are doing the right thing and to keep up the hard work. Thank you very much. I'm getting loads of thank yous from all over the world. And any questions from Caroline? Thank you from Poland. It was interesting. Thank you.
I'm just going to step in and speak to you here. Does anybody have any questions? No? Any questions for Viv at all? No? Well, that's always a good sign, isn't it? For those of you asking about the, well, what was the other school networking site, Viv?
The global network, I think it's called.
Global network, does that sound right?
Global Gateway. Sorry, Global
Gateway, there you go. There we go. I have a question which I can answer, which was, will we be able to watch the webinar again? The answer is yes, we will upload all of our recordings to the website next week for you to watch the links. I believe, oh, Dan's lowered his hand now. Oh, he asked a question about the school networking site. And a few of you have been asking, oh, Irina would like to know, do you recommend a course or individual lessons on cultural awareness?
I would recommend a course because I've written one. There are courses which prioritise this approach. The question is whether they're right for your market and whether the coverage, the syllabus fits you. But this one that I was talking about, Next Stop, is one that we wrote primarily for Mexico. But it's also selling all over the world, so that might be worth looking at. I've also written another one which was for Argentina called Best Days, and we included a lot of cultural material there. But I do think it's quite easy to supplement your existing course with materials. It's just remembering to do this and having access to those materials. A lot of them are very easy to get hold of in terms of, when we're talking about picture books and this kind of thing. So perhaps collecting a bank of materials that you can use alongside your existing course book if you're happy with the course book. So I think both can work. But the more variety, the better.
Excellent. A few of you asked about certificates as well. I'm going to pop the link in now for you. For the certificate for the session, which you can visit and print off and fill your own name in and sign it to say that to confirm that you were here. And if nobody has any more questions for Viv, I'll ask her to turn off her microphone and her video, and we'll be back in about just over 15 minutes with our next session.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Hello everyone, can you hear me? Good, that sounds good. We've still got 5 minutes to go, so thank you.
Hello everybody. Are you able to see and hear me okay? Yep, I've got some ticks. I've got no crosses, so I'm taking that as a yes. You can all see and hear me. Yep. Oh, and I've got lots of yeses appearing now in the box at the bottom there. Excellent. I have a quick question for you all. How many of you need me to go through the introductory slides again? And how many of you are confident enough with the software not to need me to explain it all to you? No need? Everyone's fine? Great stuff. That makes my life a lot easier. Okay, in which case, without further ado, I will hand over to Claire, who's going to talk to you about the 6 stages of primary. As per usual, if you have any technical problems during the session, I'll be keeping an eye out, so just raise your hand or pop a message in the box and I will do my best to help.
Hello everyone. Hello everyone. My name's Claire Pye. I'm a publisher at Macmillan Education. I've worked in ELT publishing and publishing in general for over 12 years. I've worked at Macmillan for 9 years. Before that, I lived and taught in Colombia, in Medellin. And I taught mainly secondary over there and business English as well. And when I first started in publishing, I wrote books for children mainly, and edited books for children. So primary has always been my passion, really. And recently, I've been working on the Macmillan Young Learners new website, which I believe you've had 2 presentations about. One today and one today is coming up, and there's one yesterday as well. So I'm going to talk to you today about the various online tools for primary teachers, most of which can also be used by children in the classroom. So I've called the talk The 6 Ages of Primary, and I've chosen one tool or one topic for each of the 6 ages of primary. Now we're just going to be going through these as slides, but I believe Caroline will be able to send you links to the tools that we're looking at, and also you'll be able to download a PDF of the talk afterwards, and that will have all the links in that you need for all the sites that we're looking at today and all the tools that we're looking at today. So I've divided the talk into the different ages of our primary children. I'm going to start off with some cool phonics tools, and then I'm going to move on to stories. And I'm sure a lot of you attended Carol Reed's session on storytelling, which, knowing Carol, was absolutely wonderful. I hope mine can live up to that a little bit. I'm then going to move on to top trumps, which you may or may not know. We'll see when we get to that. And then we'll cover comics, and then more productive writing stories. And at the end, for the elder children, I'm going to cover news and current affairs and student journalism. So without further ado, let's move on to phonics. Now, some of you may teach phonics for early years or pre-primary children. Or some of you may not teach phonics at all, but the site I've chosen is an absolutely fantastic resource. It's called Mr. Thorne Does Phonics, and it's hosted on the Times Educational Supplement site. How many of you know Times Educational Supplement, or TES, online? It's basically a huge teacher resource website, mainly for teachers who teach in the UK or the UK curriculum. And most of I think all the resources on there are user generated. So in the case of this particular collection of resources, Mr. Thorne Does Phonics, Mr. Thorne is, or Christopher Thorne, is a teacher who is appointed lead phonics teacher to a local authority school in Birmingham. And he created these YouTube tutorials mainly for parents, actually. But then recently he's worked with TES to collect them together. And in this collection there are over 244 videos that he has recorded in the classroom of himself teaching individual sounds, teaching games for phonics. And I really urge you to have a look at this site. It's so fantastic. Even if you just want yourself to learn more about phonics or get an overview of phonics, or if you're looking for some specific teaching ideas, this is absolutely lovely, lovely site. The example that I've provided the screenshot of, the Magic E game for split diagraphs, is so lovely. You see Mr. Thorne in his classroom playing a very simple game with a whiteboard only and pens, where he writes up the beginning of a word, and the children on their own whiteboards. They have little personal whiteboards, write the magic key and then shout out the word that's created when they add the magic key. So it's a very simple game, but it's just a lovely approach to teaching. And what I really like about it is that in his approach, which is a synthetic phonic approach, he doesn't shy away from using the meta-language, the phonics meta-language. And he and all the children just know what he's talking about. So they all know what digraphs are and they all know what trigraphs are. It's just really adorable. And it's been a very useful resource for me because I've got a nearly 7-year-old who's learnt to read with phonics. And this is just a font of information for any parent. For any of you who teach American English, there are 2 brilliant sites. One is called starfall.com and the other one is wordworld.com. Starfall is completely free, and it's also synthetic phonics approach with American English pronunciation. So I'm not sure how many of you that is useful for. Lots. But it's full of games and full of lots of recordings and audio, and there are movies in there as well. So for American English, that's a really handy one as well. And then wordworld.com is another immersive experience for children, basically, that they can access themselves. It's not entirely free, but there's plenty of free resource on there for you to have a look at and explore a little bit. So moving on to age 7. Now, for age 7, I've chosen some fantastic resources for finding stories and storytelling online, and they're all free. And I think this is a really good place to start. It's the International Children's Digital Library. Have any of you heard of this? It's a website that basically gives you thousands and thousands of free books which you can actually read online in a kind of flipbook format. So they're absolutely ideal for IWB work. If you've got any kind of projector connected to a computer, you can get all the illustrations and you can zoom in to all the text. So they're just fantastic for reading aloud in class with your students and getting your students to respond to all the illustrations with, you know, full kind of page-turning effects. This site is a huge site. The mission of the website actually is to promote diversity and tolerance. So the website offers books not just in English but also in translation or just simply in dozens of foreign languages. But you can see, I think, on the screenshot that I've provided here, that there are lots of options for filtering. So you can filter by age, 3 to 5, 6 to 9, or 10 to 13. And then you can filter by lots of other categories as well. So you can choose fiction or non-fiction books. You can filter by the length of the book. You can choose only award-winning books, fairy tales, animal stories, or imaginary stories, for example. And then you can also, up here, filter by language, or here, choosing exactly which language you want to see books in. So I'm just going to show you an example of a filter that I did. So here I filtered for, I think, what age did I filter for? 6 to 9-year-olds. And I filtered for books that are only in English. And that's returned 367 books. I think I filtered for more things as well. I think I filtered for short books only, and I think I filtered for award-winning books as well. Believe me, there are absolutely hundreds of books on this website. So the book I chose in the end was a book in English and Spanish, dual language book, The Clever Boy and the Terrible Dangerous Animal. And I'm just going to show you an example of the view that you get when you go into the book and you have and you look at the book kind of full screen. So you can see that this is really something that you can do as a whole class activity, either on the IWB or using a projector. Or equally, you could point the children to this yourself. But all of the text has a zoom feature, so you hover over the text and then you click on it, and it zooms the text so that you can read it clearly. And this is just one example of a book that's in English and Spanish. And so equally, I could zoom in on this text, obviously it's not live, click on it, and then I'd be able to view the text close up and read it in Spanish as well if I wanted. Have any of you used this site? Ever? No? Lots of no's. Anyone yes? It's great, honestly, it's absolutely fantastic. Okay, so moving on to a little bit of promotion, actually, because there are some resources on the new Macmillan Young Learners website, which are American English, and also on One Stop English, which I also publish. You can see here on the macmillanyounglearners.com/new selections that there's a whole microsite dedicated to this reading anthology, which is at 6 levels, and it's full of sample materials. There's the sample audio and there's sample worksheets as well. And on One Stop English, as well for American English, you'll find lots and lots of excerpts from the Selections anthology with lesson plans and worksheets for students and full audio as well to accompany the stories and poems. Are any of you familiar with Selections, American English? probably not unless you teach American English. Okay, some yeses. Okay. Now, I didn't want to leave the story theme without mentioning Sandy Morale's blog called Picture Books in ELT. I don't know if any of you have ever seen this blog. If you're an active member of the ILT Young Learner SIG, you probably are aware of this blog. But Sandy is, as you know, a Macmillan author and also a student of literature, children's literature, and on this blog she takes us through some of the real huge children's classics, and actually she has scans of most of the pages as well. So it's a really good resource if you want to decide which books to borrow from the library perhaps, or be inspired by picture books, which of course I think are a great resource, because I find that students respond enormously, students of any age respond to the pictures, and of course most of them don't have a huge number of words, so that sort of facilitates independent reading. And then to the other extreme, on a sort of slightly more commercial example, there's a new BBC show called Driver Dan's Story Train, and there's a website, and Driver Dan is a lion, which you can see down here in the picture, and he drives a train, and it's a story train, and every day, or twice a day I think, on the BBC, Driver Dan tells us a story. But Driver Dan has a website which you can go to it, and you can actually play games and also listen to stories. So it's very sweet, and I think it's possibly for slightly younger children, but for second language speakers, I think it's a very useful resource and a lovely resource which they can access on their own. Okay, moving on to 8-year-olds. I'm going to introduce the idea of top trumps for this section. Can you tell me, are you familiar with top trumps? Oh, blimey, lots and lots of no's. I'm just watching the numbers tot up. Most of you aren't familiar with top trumps, it seems. And I think that's probably a reflection of where in the world you are, actually. Okay, I've got some yeses for that. Now, Top Trumps is actually a card game, so you're probably wondering what that has got to do with young learners and what it's got to do with online and digital. So you can see here the packs of cards where that in the UK are very, very familiar to most children. Now I have to tell you that my son, who is nearly 7, is a massive fan of Top Trumps. And I'm very confident in saying that his ability in maths has, or his love of maths has partially been inspired by Top Trumps, and I'm going to explain to you why in a second. So Top Trumps is a game of cards where you basically take a card and you learn about the subject matter on the card. So it's great for CLIL teachers, or it's great for content teachers, or for individual subjects. So the example I'm going to show you is the baby animals example. Now on One Stop English, we've got a full set of cut out and keep Top Trumps cards, which you can download, print out, cut out, and use in class. And to go with these cut out and keep cards, you'll find loads of lesson plans and activities written by Carol Reed, which will help you to understand Top Trumps, and it will help you to play Top Trumps with your children. But let me just quickly explain what it's all about. Can you see the cards here just about? So this is the baby animals. These are the baby animals cards. You can see that each card has a variety of categories on it. And then it has some information on it. So the one I'm pointing to now is squirrel monkey. A baby squirrel monkey is called an infant. And these are the categories: the length of time, the number of months in the mummy's tummy, the weight at birth, the independence of the animal, and then there are always some very subjective categories. So there's a mischief category and a cuteness category. So you can see the language potential of these cards, I think. You can learn from the information text. You can extract the vocabulary and explain the content here and discuss the content. But the way you play the game is that you divide up the cards, you pass out the cards to the students, you divide the class into teams, and then each team has a number of cards each. You turn over, the player to start turns over a card, and they choose one of the categories which they think will win. Now the highest number always wins, so let's say that the student chooses mischief, which I think is 26, I can't see it very well. Then the other students turn over their cards and they look what number they've got for mischief. Now if they've got a higher number for mischief, then they win. They win all the cards in that round. And it carries on like that. So you keep playing until one player has won all the cards. So you can see that there's lots of opportunities there for comparatives and superlatives, for discussing children's favourite things, really, which are, you know, who's the heaviest, who's the most independent, who's the best, you know, and also to bring out children's competitive spirit, which in the case of my son, he's absolutely mad for it. Actually, he wins every time because he sort of has a photographic memory for numbers, and he remembers all the winning categories. So this is Top Trumps on One Stop English. Now, what we've done is we've teamed up with the makers of Top Trumps to create an interactive game for Top Trumps. And it's not just a game, but it's also it's also a kind of information and presenting tool. And there are some additional games in there. There's a game of Pelmanism, and also there's a drag and drop game and a quiz. The URL that you can see down here is a kind of free gift that I'm giving to you in this session. If you access that URL now for it'll be live for 24 hours. So you will be able to access that URL and have a play of the Baby Animals tool after the session or whenever you like. And it'll last for 24 hours. So just to give you an idea, when you get into the game, you can see here how it works. So you can play the game as a whole class activity. Again, you divide the class into teams. You can choose to play against the computer, or you can choose to play with 2 teams or to play with 4 teams. Aha! Looks like Caroline. Caroline, are you loading the tool? I'm not sure if Caroline's loading this.
Everybody to the link. That was what that blip was on the screen.
Okay.
That's what the blip was.
Okay, so you sent everyone the link. Yeah? Fantastic. Okay, so here we can see we're playing a game of 4 with 4 teams, and Green is currently playing and has chosen the Mum's Tum category, which is showing 7 months. And you can see that as a whole class activity, you can then discuss the different categories and look at who is going to win this particular round, which I think you can all guess is the anyone? Seal pup. So if you'd like to have a go ahead, use the link, have a play with it and see what you think. This tool is going to be published on One Stop English next month. So you'll be able to go and find it there. Okay, so also included in the tool, there's, as I said, it's also a presentation tool. So you can see here that I've just taken a screenshot of the card album section of the software. So here you can use these screens to browse through all the different animals. And then you can turn on or off any of these categories so that you can use these for whole class discussion. So I'll just show you on the next slide what happens. I've turned off title and I've turned off gap fill. So the text is now gapped and the title is gone, so I can encourage students to read this and to guess which animal we're talking about. and to shout out. And once these categories are turned on or off, I can then browse through the rest of the animals and continue to elicit the information from my students. Okay, moving on to age 9. I've chosen comics for 9-year-olds. And there are lots of comic builders or comic strip makers or comic strip builders available on the web. Have any of you used a comic strip builder in class at all with your students, or have you encouraged them to use them? So I've got a few yeses there and some no's. Okay. Okay. So there are, as I say, there are lots to choose from, but they do have different features. Some of them have quite a major social feature, which means that you can log in and you can create a comic strip, and then you can publish it, and other people can comment on your published comic strip. Now, for reasons that I'm sure you can well imagine, I have not chosen one of those tools to talk about in this presentation today, because I'm sure that most of you probably don't want to use that kind of social tool in your class of 9-year-olds. So I've chosen instead this Lego one, which again is the you know, the commercial side of these things, but often it's the commercial people who create these tools for us. This Lego City one, I liked it because it kind of provides some good language opportunities, and you'll see why in a minute. So you start obviously by selecting a layout for your comic, and then you've got here in this section a library of images. Now, again, a lot of these provide good standard language sort of context. So there's a town or city, there's a road, there's a kind of country pastoral background. I think this is a fire station, or there's a forest. So you can see that there are plenty of backgrounds to choose from. So you choose a layout, and then you start adding background, and you just literally drag them on to your comic. So here's one I made earlier. The cute thing about it, I think, is that in this little tab here for the characters you can choose from are all Lego characters. So it's adorable. I'm sure kids, especially boys, will love it. Obviously there are lots of female characters as well. So you can see that I've created this rather simple comic strip with just rather simple language in it. But I thought maybe you'd like the last example in the final frame there. There's even a seasonal Santa Lego character with a seasonal background that you can drop him in on. So of course, once you've finished, you can save your comic strip and then sort of you know, print it out and use it in class. But it doesn't have those social features, which I think are probably quite, you know, not something that we really want to do, just sort of accessing social websites in class. Okay, oh sorry, I'm just going back to that. There's also a good comic strip builder on the British Council website. And again, Caroline will send you the link, or you'll see the link when you get the PDF of the presentation, after the presentation. So that's sort of, I think, quite a cool thing to do in class. As you say, it encourages creativity, but also I think because the characters are sort of so recognisable to children, you know, it kind of encourages them to engage with the tool quite a lot, and I think produce some sort of quite simple but effective language to communicate a story with, really. Okay, so moving on now to the slightly more serious writing. I've chosen Storybird for the 10-year-olds. This is a social site, but for me it's just literally, it is so lovely. I just really have to share it with you. Has anyone accessed Storybird or used Storybird at all before? Anyone? Yes, okay, some of you have, yeah, okay. Okay, so I'm seeing that some of you have and some of you love it, so I'm sure those of you who tried it won't mind me talking about it, because they're probably just as inspired and excited about it as I am. So Storybird is a tool for basically writing stories, of course, and then publishing them as online flipbooks, which you can share and view in class or offline. Well, not offline, but you can share them with your friend by email. But the real kind of point of Storybird is that you start with the artwork. So you start with the image. Rather than starting with the words, you actually start with the images, and the images are there to sort of inspire you and inspire the story. Which for me is a very kind of creative and enriching experience, because you know, this kind of level and this quality of illustration and art is really difficult to find, I think, and to be able to use it in such a way is a fantastic resource. So I've just done a few screenshots of this. Of course, you'll be able to explore it fully in your own time. But you can see here that basically, just going back, you literally just press a button, start a Storybird now. You can take a tour if you like, but you know, just go for it, start a Storybird. And it takes you straight to step one, which is to see the art that's available. Now, there are lots of search options. You can search by keyword, you can search by tags. So, you know, you can search by theme or topic. or you can just browse, and then you get the art collections. So you can see here that I've chosen a collection, and I'm now starting to build my storybird, which is I've called Animal Alphabet. So I've chosen some animals. Can you see the pages down here that I've created? So you've got your whole layout of pages down here, and you can add pages or remove them. And you can browse through the pages and then move them around. So literally, you drag the art onto the page, and then you start writing the text. But I think this is something that you could really do as a whole class activity, and it's a great collaborative writing resource. So finally, onto the serious stuff of news and journalism. It seems a bit mean, doesn't it, to have done comic strips and top trumps and storytelling for all the other age groups, and then for 11-year-olds, they get hit with the, really serious news. But it's just really important, isn't it, to make news accessible to younger children, and to get them engaged with the news. So I've provided in this section quite a few resources which I like and which I think are useful for British English and American English news sources. And the first one is BBC Newsround. Now this is on bbc.co.uk/newsround, and it's a show on UK children's TV, which is literally a 5-minute news show. So you can actually watch the program, which is a kind of broadcast on children's TV. But the website just presents topical news in a really, really, really accessible way, and in a very brief way. So I've taken a screenshot here of something which is, of course, very topical today because it's the US elections. But of course, the question on most people's minds is, how do the US presidential elections work? Well, here on the site, you've got a very brief explanation of how the US presidential elections work. So you can see that this is very topical, up-to-the-minute current affairs and news, and it's presented in a really, really accessible way. It's not just serious news, of course. There's lots of there are lots of different topics. For example, on this section here, you can see that there's a "What is Bonfire Night" guide. But literally, this is for students to access themselves and read themselves. Okay, so moving on. Time magazine, which is a US magazine, has also got a kids edition. So this one is in an American English newspaper, and I think you can see again, election is top story because I took all of these screenshots last night. But again, it's all sort of news for kids. A lot of it is created by kids. It's easy to read, it's very accessible, and I think it's a great introduction to the news for kids. So you can give both perspectives from this side of the Atlantic and the US side of the Atlantic on the same story. Okay, so then moving on to the actual, sticky business of writing your own newspaper and creating your own newspaper. And here's quite a cool little tool from the Read, Write, Think website, which is actually, I don't know if you've ever used it before, but there are all sorts of tools on this website. So there's this is a very easy to use one, very cute one. And it literally provides you with a template, and you literally type in your headline and you add the newspaper name and the date and the name of the section. You've got your byline and your article, which is set out in columns. And when you roll your mouse over any of these sections, this is what I really like about this tool. It gives you little tips. It tells you what is important and how to use that section or what it's for. So, for example, I'm rolling over an article here, and it's saying the article should tell who, what, when, where, and why. The article should have quotes if possible. Articles report facts, not opinions. So, that's obviously quite important. But if you do get a chance, have a go at this tool. It's very useful. And then at the end, of course, you can finish and print out your newspaper using this little template. Or you can just go straight to the Google Docs option. Actually, I've just noticed that this isn't the link to Google Docs. It's the link to Newsrounds. But you can find all of these template type things in Google Docs. And this is a really good one that you can just download. Again, your newspaper title, the title of your article, your name, which is the byline, and then the copy, and there are spaces for images. So it's all set up for you, and you literally just type in to the area that you want. And of course you can, because it's Google Docs, your students can all work on it together as a sort of collaborative thing, as I think one of you just pointed out. Okay, so finally, just to round off on the newspaper theme, this page on Scoop It is a complete list of really useful links for using and creating newspapers and magazines in the classroom. And it's got all the links to some of the tools that I showed you, plus lesson plans for using or creating newspapers in the classroom. That in itself is just a really good resource that I encourage you to look at. And then also for slightly older children, on One Stop English, at the link that I've provided on the screen below, there is a whole project written by Jackie McAvoy called One World magazine, and it takes students through all of the sections in the magazine. So from the sort of editorial at the beginning to, say, for example, the problem page, or the sports page, or the interview, and each part of the project provides you with a lesson plan to go through the creation of all those different sections in a magazine. So I think together these links should provide you with all the resources you need to set up your own school publishing and media empire, and get your students involved in student journalism, and get them working on their own news desks, which I think is very exciting. So I've kind of managed to do all of those, take you through all of those links and all of those tools within my allotted time, which really brings me to the end of the 6 ages of primary. Does anybody have any questions? I'm not sure if we can manage questions, can we? Well, thank you, everybody. It's been lovely talking to you.
Do you have a question, Dan? I can see you've raised your hand. No? Victoria?
Thank you very much, everybody.
Victoria, I see your hands up. Victoria, you have a question, yes. No, you don't. Okay, brilliant. I think we've had an excellent response to that then. Oh, Dan, you've raised your hand again. Dan, how do you find all these great sites?
Well, part of it is because it's part of my job. But also, I suppose, probably the most important on digital skill is good search techniques, and I've probably got quite a good bookmarks list with some good directories and good sources. But you know, I take part in the Young Learner SIG that provides lots of information. But yeah, you know, I'm always online.
Just needing some help with resources. Do you know about any useful books of games for learners of all ages?
Books
or
games?
Or
games. Yeah.
Books of games for learners. Do we have any books of games? Or know of any websites of games?
Well, I mean, there are, you know, ELT Games is a good Google search to do, and it'll bring up lots of games for you. You know, the British Council website has got lots of interactive games on it. But yeah, books, no, I'm mainly online.
Bianca says, I think some of the stuff may be difficult for non-native speakers of these ages, but we can easily adapt the resources for the level of our kids.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. I think that is true. That is true. But I've actually tried to find resources that were accessible to teachers who are perhaps also non-native speakers. So the ones that are the most simple to use and the ones that maybe didn't have so much text.
How much internet resources and computer use do you think is healthy to introduce and use with the children?
Oh gosh, that's a big one, isn't it? That's a big question. And you know, I mean, I went to a presentation at ISFL last year, which kind of really worried me, actually, thinking my kids don't get any screen time at home, but I know they get some at school. I don't know. They say no more than 3 hours of screen time a day.
It's a big question. I think it has to be case by case, doesn't it?
It is.
And there's another big question. Is the age of 6 the best age to start learning English in a non-English speaking environment? I think that's almost a...
Yeah. Yes, well, the age of 6 is the age that most children start learning English at school. I mean, it's mainly, it depends on the country, doesn't it, that you're in. It depends on the local government's policy. Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay, Caroline. Bye, everybody. Thank you for listening. I really appreciate it. And I look forward to doing this kind of thing again. Bye.
Okay, everybody, I've got a few questions coming up about the PDF. I know that some of you are having problems receiving it. According to the transfer library at my end, it's still sending, so some of you won't have received it properly yet. So you have to give it a few minutes to actually download. It might take a little bit of time to get through to you. If it doesn't get through to you, don't worry about it. We're going to make it available on the website along with all of the links to recording sessions and that sort of thing. It's just the PDF of the slides that you've seen with all the links live in it. But we will be making it available, so don't panic too much. Also, it's a very large file, so it may be that it doesn't get through to you. But like I say, don't worry, you'll get it afterwards, probably next week. I think we can all agree that was an excellent session. I think everybody enjoyed that very much. We've got the next session coming up in about 15 minutes, which is going to be Paul Drury and Maddie Foley talking about the Macmillan Young Learners Portal. It was a very popular session yesterday, so if you missed it, then don't worry, it's coming up in about 15 minutes. So you've got a little bit of time for a comfort break, and we'll see you back here then. And I'm going to turn off my mic and hand over to Maddie.
Right, hello everyone. Everyone can hear me, I'm assuming? Yeah, cool, okay. So hi everyone. I have Paul Drury, the primary publisher, sitting right next to me. So when I have finished, I will swap chairs. So this is the Macmillan Young Learners website. This is a new website that we're launching this year. The URL is at the bottom. It's www.macmillanyounglearners.com. I'm not going to use the live site. I'm just going to use some slides. So after the presentation, please go and have a look at the actual website and tell us what you think. So this is the portal homepage. So it's a portal that houses most of our primary and pre-primary courses for British and American English. And going forward, any new courses that we produce will have their own microsite on there. Oh, sorry, there's something flashing up on my screen distracting me. Sorry. Right, I'm going to click on to the next slide. Oh, what's going on? Sorry, guys, I'm just having a technical hitch at the moment. Hang on a sec.
Yeah.
Stay with me. Don't go anywhere.
No, what have you got popping up?
Okay. And then let me
Yeah, I believe it has. Okay. Right, there with me. I'm just going to tell them we're having technical difficulties. Folks, bear with me just a moment. We're having a minor technical hitch. We'll be with you very, very shortly.
Is your video still playing? Can we see?
I'm doing it. There's a video as well. Unless you guys want to go and run it on my computer while I put this on.
what do you want to do?
Yeah, you can do that if you're happy to, because you're coming onto this one anyway, aren't you? So if you want to, yeah. They're all hearing you now anyway, because we can't turn the microphone off. My mic and speakers are there. Click the talk and whatnot.
Right, hi guys. Sorry about that. Can everyone hear me? Cool. Okay, sorry about that. Let me go back. I'll skip some of my slides. Okay, sorry, as I was saying, this is the portal homepage. So here you can search for any of our pre-primary and primary courses, British and American English. As I said, not all of the courses that are already out are on there, but most of our courses going forward will have their own microsite. So here, this is the search, so you can basically filter, you can look for American English or British English, pre-primary or primary, and you can then browse the relevant courses and click on each of the individual microsites for each course. This is an example of one of the microsites that's housed within the Young Learners portal. So this is Brainwave. This is one of our new American English courses. So here you can see on the home page for Brainwave, you can watch a video about the course. You can look at the key features. And this is another example of a microsite for Macmillan English. So this is one of our older courses. It's been out for a while, but what we've done this year for Macmillan English is revamp it, and we've added loads and loads of new teacher resources. So we've got projects, tests, projectable posters, projects, loads and loads of stuff for every level. So you can also try a sample. So I don't know if you can see it on your screen, but you can download some book samples. This is on each of the microsites for the courses that are on here. These are another sort of screenshots from a couple of the other microsites. We've got one for English World and one for Footprints. Just to note, some of the older courses don't have as much teaching material on there. This is because they didn't have a shiny new website when we first produced them. So for courses like English World and Footprints, there's not as much resource on there as there are for things like Macmillan English and Brainwave, which is a new course. But going forward, for example, we've got 2 American English courses coming out in January next year, Next Move and Hats on Top. And the editorial team are building in lots of resources, especially to go on the website. So going forward, any of our new primary courses will have an all singing, all dancing resource site on the Young Learners portal. So here you can see with English World, we've got a series of teaching videos. So you can view any of these for free. And on Footprints here, you can download worksheets, portfolios, and sample audio. The exact resources will differ between courses. So you might have teacher training videos for one course, for example, and either not as many or no teacher training courses on others. So the microsites do reflect each individual course. But I think generally across all of the microsites, you'll be able to view and download sample material and other things to help you. This is the Young Readers microsite. This is housed under the portal as well. Our 3 main reading schemes for primary are housed on this microsite: Macmillan Children's Readers, Explorers and Factual Readers. This is where I'm going to hand over to Paul Drury. He's going to talk a little bit more about how this online resource can really help you in the classroom. So I'll hand over to Paul. Yep.
Anyone able to hear me? See me? Yes, 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 yes. We're all back and running. Yes, we had a minor technical itch, but I think you're all able to see me fine now. Paul and I have swapped, so as you can see, I'm not Paul Drury, and in a minute when he pops up, he's not Caroline Short either, but I will now be running from this computer and he'll be running from mine, so I will hand you over to him.
Hello everybody, I'm hoping that you can hear me now. Okay. Until I get told to shut up, I'll keep talking, so please do sort of let me know if you're hearing me okay or if there are any other problems. Thank you so much for letting me talk to you today, and huge apologies for the technical issues. It had to happen at some point. Now, I do tend to talk very, very quickly, so feel free to tell me to slow down. I hope the weather is lovely where you are. At the moment, it's miserable here. It's raining and it's very, very grey. Now, as Maddie was saying, we have launched the Young Readers portal as well, and the bit I get to talk to you about is the Young Readers area of the website, which is fantastic because readers in general is something that I feel very, very strongly about. And I think there's nothing better than when you see a child sitting down with a book and enjoying a book, or reading on a tablet, or reading on a mobile phone, or reading a leaflet or anything. I think it's wonderful. And the great thing about this is that it is a key area of the Young Readers portal, and there is so much stuff available for free as well, and stuff that I hope will be very, very useful for you all. So these are the areas that I'm going to talk to you about. So in this next session, I'm going to talk to you about the following things. I'm going to talk a little bit briefly about why reading is so important in childhood. And it's something that we say very often as teachers, as educators. It's say, oh, children must read, children must read. And I think it's worthwhile just taking the time to take a step back and try to remember why it is important. What are the benefits from reading in childhood? Then I'm going to introduce you to 3 of the reading schemes that we have for children here at Macmillan. And then I'm going to go back to the Young Learner website, and I'm going to show you some of the resources that we have available at macmillanyounglearners.com readers. And the most important thing as well is I would love to hear your opinions as well. I want to see what ideas you have. So I'm going to talk through some ideas, but if you have anything to say, anything to add, please just type away in the bottom and I'll try and see what you say. So the first thing is this quote, which for me I think is fantastic. It's by a guy called Sugata Mitra, who is an Indian academic, and I'm sure a lot of you have heard a lot about him. Now, he is an Indian academic, and what he did was he developed the idea, the hole-in-the-wall experiments, and this was something that he believed that children could teach themselves a huge amount. So what he did was to set up computers in some of the slum areas and some of the urban rural areas of India, and he just observed how children used these computers. Now, he was very clever because the way he designed the booths, the kiosks, it was only the children that could see the screen, so it was actually awkward for the adults to see what was going on. And what he did over the period of several weeks, several months, was he observed how the children interacted with those computers. And he realized that they became self-organizing cells. They started to help each other, support each other, show each other, and eventually that led to a great deal of very, very interesting learning. And he developed the idea of minimally invasive education, and something where he said that you just expose the children to a lot of the information, to the content, and then they, in turn, will be able to teach themselves to find something that is of interest to them. And this quote, I think, is deceptively simple. It simply is, if children have interests, then education happens. Now, I think that's, as I say, deceptively simple, but it covers a huge truth. And we as teachers, as educators, as publishers, we work very hard, we try very hard to create materials that are of interest, where the language is appropriate, where the topics are engaging, but ultimately we do rely a great deal on the children. The children have to be receptive to this information. And I think this is particularly true when it comes to reading, because whenever the children are reading, they are increasing the number of opportunities that they have available to find something that is of interest to them. And as I said, we want the children to pick up, be it a book, be it a tablet, be it a leaflet, be it a mobile phone, anything that is exposing them more and more to print, anything that increases their knowledge of the world and indeed knowledge of themselves as well. So then I started thinking, okay, what are some of the reasons? Why do we want children to be reading? And I'm sure you have lots of ideas about this as well. So please do let me know if you have any other thoughts. But some of the things that I felt were really, really important was, why is reading important? The more the children read, the more likely they are that they will find something of interest. I think also, especially at those early stages, at those emergent literacy stages, creating that link between sound and spelling, so where you hear the word and then you also see the word on the page, that's very, very important for that developmental process. Reading as well is fantastic for visual learners. They consolidate what a word actually looks like. They may have heard it many times, but to actually see it on a page just consolidates that little bit of learning. And then in a little bit more abstract way, I think the more children read, the more they can become more discriminating, the more they can develop critical thinking skills as well. We have to accept the fact that children nowadays, they're exposed to a huge amount of data, and they need to find a way through this data. They need to find what is useful, what is less useful. And then, of course, stories. We all grew up with stories. Stories are vital so that you can test theories about yourself. You test theories about the world around you. It really does shape your own personality, or help you to shape your own personality. And then something that I think is often overlooked, the children in the classroom, we have all types of children. We have extroverted children, we have introverted children, we have very loud children and very quiet children. Just giving that opportunity to sit down and read a book for a little time really does give the opportunity for those quieter, introverted children just to have a period of reflection where they can just be with themselves and allow them to sort of absorb information. So with that in mind, moving on, these are some of the, I'm going to briefly talk about now what the 3 reading schemes that we at Macmillan have available. Now we have 3. We've got the Macmillan Children's Readers, which are around about 40 odd titles. We've got the Macmillan Factual Readers, which as from January 2013 will also have 40 titles. And then we also have the Explorers and the Explorers Phonics, which we have around 66 titles. Now, they are very, very different types of reading schemes. So just to briefly mention the key elements of each one. First of all, we have the children's readers. I'm just going to hold that up so you can see. Okay. And the slide I'm showing you now is taken from the children's readers from level 4. All of these Macmillan children's readers from level 3 onwards, they have a fact and a fiction section. So in this page you can see that they have, they're talking about electric instruments, about instruments around the world. But then also in the second half of the book, there's also a story. So this really, the main purpose of the series like this is the volume, is exposing children to volume of reading, getting the children just to sit down and reading for no particular purpose. I think that's a key phrase, reading for no particular purpose. As you can see, the text is presented in very manageable chunks. The language is moderated, so it's an achievable task. The children can sit down themselves and enjoy the book. The next series are the Macmillan Factual Readers. And here's an example of the front cover. Now, as you can see immediately, it's very, very different in look and feel. These books, the factual readers, are content rich. They have a wide variety of real world topics. And as you can see from the side of the slides, there's a book about snakes, there's a book about insects, about sharks, a more scientific book about space, or a more historical book about ancient Egyptians. And as you can see, there's a wide variety. They're very, very content rich, with very, very rich photography as well. The lexis as well is much more topic specific, much more linked to the curriculum. So as you would expect with something like this, the language is that little bit more challenging. Okay, so I think we're just having a little discussion about the slides. Okay, I'm going to move on through the factual readers, and the presentation will be available in the next few days online as well. And if any of you have any questions, my email address will be up at the end. Then the third series are the Explorers Phonics and the Explorers, the main Explorers. Now this series is much more about developing the skills and strategies that children need to become proficient and competent readers. This one is a very early one, so it's presenting the sound up, and you can see it within the context. So the text says, Bud went to play. He looked at the mud. I like to run in the mud, said Bud. He had fun in the mud. Now, it's a simple, it's a fun, it's a meaningful story, meaningful in that it has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And of course, the main feature here is that you're exposing the children to that sound. And again, you're making the link between sound and spelling. And this series goes right through from this very, very basic level right through to the more sophisticated retelling of classics such as Pinocchio or Snow Queen or titles like that. Okay, I think this is just a nice, fun piece of artwork as well. As you can see, all children, as soon as they see a puddle of mud, they want to jump in and get themselves all mucky. Bear with me 1 second. So, everything I've shown you so far, all of these pages from the Macmillan Children's Readers, from the Factual Readers, and from the Explorers, all these sample pages are available from the Young Learner portal. We have lots and lots of samples available on the website. So really my question to you is to have a little think, and you've seen pages from the Children's Readers, from the Factual Readers, from the Explorers, and well, how could you use these pages in the classroom? We don't have the whole book available, but we do have sample pages. Now, these are some of the things that I thought about, but I'm sure you have lots of your own ideas as well. The most obvious thing I think would be if you're talking about preparing a class library, if you want your children to be selecting and choosing books, which would be a fantastic thing, because we do want the children to be engaged, to be involved in their own reading, in their own learning as well. So maybe you could download or print lots of different samples from the different series at different levels, and also maybe from the Factual Readers, from the Explorers, from the Children's Readers, and pass them around to groups of children and get them to come up with a little analysis of the samples. What do they like? What don't they like? What artwork styles do they like? Where is the language most appropriate? What content do they most enjoy, or do they find most engaging? And really get them to feed back to you to present their findings. And the most important thing would be to ensure that the children explain their reasons and justify their reasons. And this is something that we have to be doing all the time, is asking why, explain, what do you mean, why is that? And then that's really them taking a lot more responsibility for what they want to read. Perhaps as well, you could also use the pages as a lead-in to a discussion. So for example, with the butterfly pages, maybe you're talking about the life cycle of a butterfly, and you can go through and say, and you can talk about the parts of the butterfly, you can talk about what's happening in the scene. It really does just activate a lot of the child's prior knowledge. And again, you could project these pages, or maybe you could print a few out as an example. You could use the pages as part of shared reading. Now, shared reading, I think, is a fantastic tool, which I'm sure you do in your classrooms already. But the difficulty very often is getting everybody to see the same text at the same time. If you project a couple of the pages, then you can all be involved in that telling of the story. And that's particularly good with something like phonics, with the Stuck in the Mud, where you can all just read the text and you can share that story and also emphasize that sound, the sound. Alternatively, you could show one of the sample pages if it's a book that you've already read, and you can get the children to retell the story. So you can ask them, what happened before this? What's going to happen afterwards? What's happening in the scene? And you can generate a huge amount of language, even just from a few sample pages. But as I say, something that we're very, very keen on, something that we want to push very hard, is getting the children to read volume, just to read a large amount of anything and everything. But we do completely understand that you need to be monitoring progress. Teachers need to make sure that the children are understanding, that they are sort of picking up on some of the key vocabulary, and particularly parents want to see progress. You need to understand that they're not just sitting and reading a book, that they are developing their language skills. So this is really important and very worth emphasizing, that we have made resources available for each and every title available on that we have. We have resources for each title. And here's an example on this slide from the Macmillan Children's Readers and from the Macmillan Factual Readers. But also, as you can see below, we have all the audio that's available to download. And I'll talk about the audio in a minute as well. With the Explorers, because it is much more systematic and it is much more about developing the skills and the strategies of what makes a good reader, we've also made available for free online all of the teacher's notes for the Explorers and for the Explorers Phonics. Now, I know phonics sometimes can be a little bit scary. Sometimes teachers whose first language isn't English can feel a little bit uncomfortable about teaching phonics, which is why you need that extra little bit of support. So these teacher's notes go through stage by stage explaining what is phonics, why is it a good thing to do, and how can you teach it. And they have lesson notes for each and every title as well. The main thing, though, is the fact that we have made available on the website is all of the audio for each and every title. Everything is there, and it's all free to listen to online or to download. And this is a huge resource, because we're talking about a couple of hundred titles, large amounts of audio that are all available. It's a huge resource. And this is, again, something that I know you will have lots and lots of ideas of how best to exploit this. Here are a couple of mine. So with the audio, how could you use this audio with your students? The most obvious version would be to do listen and read, read then listen, listen then read. Let me explain what I mean by that. Listen and read is the simplest of them. It's very, very stress-free for the child, and it's just about them listening to the audio and following the text in their books. Something that I'm sure we all did as children, and something which I think a lot of children enjoy. As I say, it's low stress, they're not expected to do anything, they just need to sort of absorb a lot of the information. Now, as teachers, we'll need to ask them lots of prompt questions and make sure they don't fall asleep. But we do need to, the important thing would be to let them enjoy what they're doing. Now, if you want to make it a little bit harder, a little bit more challenging, keep the children on their toes, then we need to think about maybe doing things like read, then listen. Ask the children to read 1 or 2 pages, 1 or 2 paragraphs. Ask them a couple of comprehension questions, or what do you think about this, or what do you think is going to happen? And then you can go back to the audio, and they can maybe check their answers, check that they've understood what they've read. Conversely, listening can be quite challenging for some of our students. So maybe if you just listen, ask them to listen to a chunk of text, and then ask them some comprehension questions, and then get them to check their answers by then reading the book. Okay? So even there, just those 3 permutations, they look very, very similar, but they're all activating different skills and getting the children to think in slightly different ways. Something that I used to do as well, is maybe just to do a kind of a dictation. So just even with a short chunk of text, just 1 or 2 sentences, is play the audio and ask the children to write down any words, anything that they understood, and then to play it over and over again, and to get them to reconstruct the text. And that's doing that over a period of time really does develop some very, very good listening skills. And then you can ask them to check against the text in the book. Now, also, because of the number of titles available, you could use some of these simply as an audiobook. We all like to listen to these stories, so what you can do, download them. All the children, or a lot of the children, I'm sure, will have access to MP3 players, will have mobile phones, and they can play them in the car, at home, anything like that. And really, again, excellent for that home-school link, giving them to the parents, so the parents can play the books in the car with the children, and then they can be asking the children for questions about the title as well. It's a great model for phonics. As I said before, some teachers can be a little bit nervous about teaching phonics, and I think if you use the audio, sorry, I've just seen a couple of questions. I'll come back to your questions in a second. If you're using the audio, then the teacher can be reassured that the model is an accurate one. Okay, let me just have a quick look at some of these questions that are popped in now. Yes, you will be able to access all the presentations in a couple of days. There's a question here from Steliana. Would you ask these additional questions in mother tongue or English, providing we're working with very young learners whose English is very basic? Would you use translation? This is a question that comes up very often. Should you use first language or second language? I think it's really, there is no right or wrong answer. I definitely feel you know your children, you know your class, you know how much they can accept. What I would say, and I've been very fortunate in that I've been able to visit lots of classrooms, is that a lot of it is about feeling that security. So it's not about overloading the children with language. If you're able to control the language and just give them clear, concise input, then I think it's quite easy to use English. Remember, children, particularly very young learners, they're still developing their first language. Now, what that means is that they're using non-linguistic clues as well. So they're not only listening to language to learn about the meaning, to learn about the context. They're also looking in at your face, at your gestures, and in the same way with the story, they're looking at the pictures and they're trying to infer meaning from the pictures and try to find the connection between the text and the pictures. So for that reason, I think we can be a little bit more reassured that we should be trying to use as much English as possible, but at the same time not feeling guilty when you do go back into your second language. I hope that's answered your question, Steliana. Okay, I'm just scrolling down. Right. And moving on. So generally coming to the end now, but really just to wrap things up, I wanted to let you know that MacmillanYoungLearners.com, just to really sort of summarize, it is a central place for information for all our pre-primary and primary courses. If the course you're using is not there yet, it will be in the very near future, and we'd love to hear your feedback as well. There are downloadable resources, and I can't emphasize there are lots and lots of free downloadable resources. Even if you're not using any Macmillan titles, I'm sure you can access some of this material and you'll find something useful for your lessons. As I said before, the audio for all our readers is available to download. This is a huge resource and I'm sure you can do lots and lots of things with it. But we are at the very early stages of this Young Learner Portal. There's an awful lot to come. So, please, please, please do get in touch with us. Tell us what you think. Tell us what you want to see on the site. What material are you looking for that we might be able to provide? Tell us how you're using the site, what you find easy, what you find difficult. And then, of course, because it is digital, we do have technical issues as well, or there will be some technical issues. And if you do, you can see the website here, help.macmillan.com. Just send your query there, and we will try to get back to you within 48 hours to try to answer your question. And then finally, if you have any questions for me, if there's anything which I can do to help you, then please do let me know. There's my email address at the bottom, p.drury@macmillan.com. Okay. Now, that's the end of my talk, but I will be more than happy to try and answer some of your questions if you have any. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. I hope you all have a lovely day as well. I'll be online for a couple more minutes just in case anybody else has any questions. But otherwise, thank you very much. Goodbye.
Hi folks. Okay, that's the end of today's session. Thank you all for joining us. As I've explained, we will be sending the links to the sessions, the recordings and that sort of thing out at a later date. I know lots of you are about to start asking me about the certificate, so I'll pop that in now. Oh, what's this one say? Just want to give you an interesting link about a podcast on how children learn if people want to take a look. From Diana. Leslie, the PDF file, do you mean the PDF that we sent in the last session? Lots of thank yous for Paul. Shah, did you mean the PDF file from the previous session? Is that what you're all talking about? Well, there wasn't one for this session. There wasn't, Alina, there wasn't a PDF file for this session. The next sessions, that is the last in our primary conference, I'm afraid. That's the last primary session. The next sessions in the online conference are on Thursday. At the same time as today, it's 12:30 in the UK time until 4 o'clock. Stop chanting PDF, PDF at me for a moment, please. Making me laugh. We've got a fantastic webinar tomorrow as well, which is also on our Eventbrite page. That's Kate Pickering. She's going to be doing a webinar called Beginners in English, Experts in Life. The sessions, such as Carol Reed's session, the recording from today's session, all those kinds of things will be available next week or thereabouts on our website. You'll have to give us time to get all the processing done so that we can get them up there. That's not a problem, but you'll have to wait for it, I'm afraid. So keep an eye on our webpage next week for those, as will all the PDFs. There isn't a PDF of this session. That was just something that Viv prepared for us in advance and that Claire prepared for us in advance. There isn't a PDF of this session. It will all be available to you next week. All the PDFs and all that sort of thing. All right. Got it? Excellent. I hope to see many of you online again on Thursday or tomorrow for the webinar, or sooner if you like. If you have any queries for me, you know where to find me. I will pop my email in. I have not long got married, so I know that all of you will be trying to send it to my old email address. So don't send it to this one instead. c.scudamore@macmillan.com. Let me know if you have any queries. And I hope we'll get to see you all online soon. Once more, the certificate link is here. And if nobody has any more questions, I'm going to shut down. Thank you very much, all of you. Thanks, Liana. You have a lovely evening too. Good night, everyone.